Welcome to RPG Book Club Movie Nights, the podcast where once a season we watch a movie that's related to a game that we've recently played. Except tonight, the only relation is that it's bad and I love it. I'm Sam Almond.
I'm Bernard.
And I'm Trish.
And tonight we will be discussing the 1996 Doctor Who television movie starring Paul McGann and Daphne Ashbrook. But first, how's everyone's week?
Don't remember.
Same, honestly.
My week
A week
was
passed?
My week was real bad, but it was GDQ week, so it leveled out to just being a blah week. I got dumped like immediately after recording last week, or right before. I don't remember. Time
It
is
was
hard.
before, I think.
Yeah, and that sucked for a week, and then I accidentally, while writing my JRPG canon notes for Atelier Marie, I beat the entire remake. I just binged the whole game yesterday. It's not that long, so it's not that big of a deal. Like, a run through the game is like 6-7 hours, but I still, for the first time in JRPG canon history, played the entire game before the episode. But
Nice. So usually on the JRPG canon, you're like, do I want to continue playing this game?
mhm.
And
now-
I guess the answer was yes.
Yeah, because
I guess you can now say, do I want to continue playing the 20 other Atelier games?
yes. So the problem with it is that I normally do like twice through the gameplay loop, which for most RPGs looks roughly town dungeon. But the gameplay loop for Atelier is about like 2 seconds long. It's go pick up something, bring it back home, turn it into an item, do that for 5 years. And so I was like, well, my notes would be too short if I just did 2 gameplay loops. So I'll just play a little bit more, talk about like the game more holistically and less like following through, and then I beat the entire game.
That
But-
sounds holistic to me.
Yeah.
It's whole.
It's GDQ's fault because the Majora's Mask 5-hour run was on last night, and then I accidentally played the game for 5 straight hours and beat it. So I only consumed 1 video game and 1 speed run last night before bed, but they both were way too long. But yeah, GDQ rules, and the finale is tonight, and I'm excited about it. I won't be able to watch anymore tonight though, which is unfortunate. But yeah, love GDQ.
Mm-hmm.
But if y'all don't remember your weeks, I guess without further
I can dredge up something. I'll
Okay.
dredge up let's see. I've been reading Jasmine Throne. I'm still not very far. I've just kind of been pecking at it, but it's really good so far. And my partner Ari is still visiting, who is wonderful. We need to do another cuddling in bed and watching Avatar session, because I don't remember if I've ever mentioned this on the podcast, but they hadn't seen Avatar The Last Airbender, and so we've been remedying that. We're at the finale now. We ended our last watch through with Ember Island Players, and may I just say, Ember Island Players is still like cream of the crop Avatar episode.
It's so good.
But yeah, that's mostly been my week.
Awesome. So then, now, without further ado, let's go back to San Francisco in 1996 in our time machines. Hopefully we don't die the moment we step out the door.
Are we gonna put the weird jank ass Doctor Who opening theme the movie used?
Are you saying this amazing, the first time it was ever orchestrated was Jankass? Because this was awesome.
It was alright.
So maybe we should say what everyone's history with Doctor Who is before.
Ooh, good idea.
Okay. Trish, you go first.
Okay, so I was largely ignorant of Doctor Who for a long time. My first exposure to Doctor Who was the worst kind. In high school, I was at academic decathlon, and we were covering the Great Depression, and a friend of mine who loved Doctor Who was like, "Oh, I know, they did an episode of Doctor Who set in the Great Depression. Let's all watch that in class."
Oh God.
And that was horrible idea because that's the two-parter where the Daleks turn people into pig people, and it's truly. I'm just gonna throw out my own opinion here. I've seen that many times since. It's the worst. Some of the worst Doctor Who episodes of New Who, maybe of all of Doctor Who. I'm not sure. It's pretty bad. So really bad introduction, and it wasn't until college, like second year of college, I started going through the series. It was right around in real life, series 6 was wrapping up. Like the Wedding of River Song had like recently come out, I think. And so I just binged through it. I watched as it came out for years, and then like had multiple periods of falling off and catching up and falling off and catching up. I've currently fallen off. I need to catch up. But at some point in all of that, I discovered Big Finish Doctor Who, which is a side thing of audio dramas that are largely classic series based, but they've now incorporate a lot of modern Who now that they're legally allowed to. Uh, and they're great. Like there's bad ones, 100%, but the best of them are utterly fantastic. Big Finish Doctor Who is a treat. If you like any kind of Doctor Who, it's a great way to experiment and test out different of the classic Doctors and get a better idea of them and their companions, but like with really, really great stories. Off the top of my head, The Kingmaker, Doctor Who and the Pirates, and
Chimes of Midnight.
Chimes of Midnight. And I'm trying to think of a good seventh one. I was did a 5, a 6, and 8. What's a good great seventh Doctor one? Oh, Live 34. Live 34 is good.
Live 34. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My recommendations. A bunch of them are on Spotify for free if you have Spotify. Otherwise, you can get them through the website, or if you are a pirate, you can pirate it. So yeah. Anyway, that's my answer.
Cool. Mine is vaguely similar-ish. So randomly as it came out, I watched not as it came out, but as Sci-Fi got the rights to it, I watched Girl in the Fireplace one random day in high school. And I only know this because way later in college, when me and my friends decided we were going to get into Doctor Who, we got to that episode and I'm like, oh my God, I know everything about this. Did I watch Doctor Who on accident back in the day? And what a good first episode of Doctor Who to ever watch.
You had the polar opposite of my experience.
Yes. And so I then got caught up at that point. That was somewhere in the 11th Doctor. I got caught up, and then I stayed current through part of 12th Doctor, but a lot of people love 12th Doctor and they say that he's their favorite, but I just never could really jive with him. And it's not like he did a bad job or anything. It didn't excite me to get back into watching it. And so I fell off around then. And then when they announced that Jodie was going to be the Doctor, I got caught up. I watched current for her first season. It left a really bad taste in my mouth. I didn't watch until the end of season 3. And then I went back and watched not season 3, her third season, season 13. I went back and watched the two of them, and now I'm current. But when, like I had always known that there were a bunch of Doctor Who audio plays like that. It was like thrown around on Tumblr and stuff like that in the fandom spaces, but I didn't think they were anything cool or important, because like as cool and stuff that like all the Star Trek expanded universe and the Star Wars expanded universe stuff is, none of it's important or really like life-changingly good. So I was like, it's whatever. They have other Doctor Who stuff. I don't care. It's not important. But then on the 50th, when they brought Paul McGann back and he name-dropped his audio companions and everybody was freaking out, I was like, well, let me see what all this is about. And I started listening to Big Finish, and I've now listened to an ungodly amount of Big Finish. They're real good. I would like to stop spending as much money. So if they wanted to do a like be a year behind Netflix model, I would pay for that instead of paying a lot of money every quarter to get the new Eighth Doctor box set. But yeah, what about you, Bernard? What do you know about Doctor Who?
Can I make a really embarrassing confession?
Hmm.
In high school, I was a Teaboo.
Oh my god.
I now hate Britain, as anyone should. But in high school, I was a Teaboo. I was a Teaboo um,
That
throughout
term.
my childhood, but somehow Doctor Who completely escaped my notice. I didn't know anything about it. But then probably like in 2007, 2008, around the year I graduated high school, one of my high school friends was like, "Hey, you've got to check this out." And she gave me a burned DVD
Oh my god.
of the first few episodes of Doctor Who 2005. And I
Nice.
watched it and I was like, this is weird.
Yeah.
And but then later, like in college, I ended up watching like all of Ninth Doctor, all of 10th Doctor, and then partway through 11th Doctor, I was like, yeah, fuck this. And I haven't really watched it since. And I've never watched, before today, I had never watched anything pre 2005.
Yeah. It's pre 2005 Doctor Who is weird, but this one is weird in its own special ways and not quite like the classic series. So, a little background on this movie to catch up the the state of science fiction when this movie came out. Um, Doctor Who really struggled in the 80s. Tom Baker's run was hugely popular and hugely successful. It ran for 7 entire seasons. Basically, all of the 70s belonged to Tom Baker, and it was super cool. Everybody really liked it. So then, when he was leaving the show, they needed to find a way to like breathe new life into the character. So they went to a very back to basics vibe with the Fifth Doctor, who had less humor and less of the horror themes, and was more of a focus on science, and reintroduced a bunch of the classic villains that had been missing throughout most of Tom Baker's run, like the Cybermen and the Master and stuff like that. This grounded version of the Doctor was well liked, but Peter Davison didn't want to be typecast as the Doctor. More on this later. So he didn't renew his contract after the 3 years were up. So
And then they wanted to recapture the magic of Tom Baker, so they cast another Baker.
yes, but this time the life they wanted to breathe into the series was to make it darker and edgier and more angry. So when he first regenerates into Colin Baker, he strangles his companion.
Yep.
What?
And
Poor
and
Perry.
and so strangling the fan favorite character Perry Brown was received very, very poorly. And so Doctor Who went on an 18-month hiatus right in the middle of his first season. So they didn't even show all of those episodes of his first season.
It should also be noted that his run was complicated by the fact that the executive producer at the time was actively trying to kill the show. And so while the writers were going, hey, we want to do a darker Doctor stuff, he was going, okay, but you need to give him a rainbow trench coat outfit. And need to add a bunch of silly jokes, and was basically creating the worst tonal clash possible, trying to murder the show.
Mm-hmm. However, a running theme from here on out is the fans are resilient, and they really liked, like the hardcore Doctor Who fans really liked Colin Baker's portrayal. That's why he's the second best audio Doctor. Like everybody loved him, but
He's fantastic. He's my favorite.
But the writers were like, we want a season 24 or whatever it was, and the producers that Trish talked about said, we'll only do it if you fire Colin Baker. Colin was like, It's really stupid to end my story off screen, so obviously y'all aren't going to do that. So let's do my final season. I'm aware that y'all want me out of here. We'll do a final season. We'll wrap things up. But the producer said no and fired him. Didn't let him come back and put Sylvester McCoy in a wig for the regeneration scene. So at the end of all of it,
Wow.
Colin Baker was only the Doctor for 3 years, 18 months of which was a hiatus in which there was no Doctor Who. So he did not have a very long tenure as the Doctor. So his
Longer than another person will be introduced to soon.
yes, um, asterisk. Colin was replaced, and he doesn't even have. There was a singular expanded universe that came out during the hiatus. Otherwise, that's all he has. The person will be introduced to much later is technically the longest running Doctor because he had almost 10 years before he was replaced. But that's beside the point. So Colin's replacement was Sylvester McCoy, who played the Doctor as like an outwardly bumbling fool, but a secret manipulator who plots and calculates and gets what he wants without getting his hands dirty. The hardcore Doctor Who fans really, really loved it, but it did not catch on with the world at large, did not save Doctor Who from cancellation, and in 1989 the show was canceled. But as is the case in both of the 60-year-old television shows that were unfairly canceled with a vocal, passionate fan base, there were tons of novels, magazines, tie-in comics, drama productions, both official and otherwise, clamoring for more Doctor Who. There's a whole thing I don't want to get into because it's a super long, interesting rabbit hole, but there are like 4 or 5 different straight-to-video television shows that were 100% just more seasons of Doctor Who, starring actual former Doctors. The most famous one is called The Stranger, but they literally were just like, oh, hey, this guy's going to come in. He's going to refer to himself as The Stranger, and maybe he's a time traveler, and it's just Doctor Who. So,
Wow. I'm learning a lot.
So in the early 90s, Philip Segal, who was a British expat, he worked for Columbia Pictures, and he was like, I love Doctor Who. It's dying over there, so we should take it over to America. At the time, this was very, very popular. Sanford and Son was a remake of a British show called Steptoe and Son. All in the Family was a remake of, I think it was called Till Death Do Us Part. I don't have it in my notes. It was just one I saw earlier. And so they were like, oh, we'll do that. We'll make a American version of it. Keep Doctor Who going. But Columbia didn't want it. Amblin Entertainment didn't want it. Universal Studios didn't want it. But the vice president of television movie production, Trevor Walton at Fox, was also a British expat, so he desperately wanted to keep Doctor Who alive. But he wasn't in charge of any television shows, just television movies. So he was intending for this show to be a backdoor pilot, have everybody watch it, like it, and want it to pick it up as a show afterwards. They also had around this time came up with the idea that instead of trying to make a new backstory that would kind of get the US up to speed quickly to like the modern, like the Doctor Who that people love is like 9 seasons in. And so they're like, how do we wrap that up, get to that much quicker? And they were like, let's just continue the old stuff. We'll just be in media res. We don't have to explain who the Doctor is. We'll just keep it going.
And I gotta say, love that.
Yeah, it was surprisingly.
That's really trusting
I
the
largely
audience.
love that. I have a complaint, but I largely love it.
Yes. However, when they told the producers, Hollywood producers love to be given notes, and we get a bunch of stupid plot contrivances in this movie, but one beyond that, they wanted that Paul McGann to regenerate from Tom Baker, because Tom Baker's seasons were the only ones that were brought over to the US, and they were really popular with the Fox audience. And so they're like, oh, we'll do the marketing one. But our 2 British expats spat in their face and are like, that's not how any of this works. And so they made the film that we know and love today. So what happens in this movie? Right off the bat, a bunch of stupid shit.
Wait,
Stupid shit happening in Doctor Who? I don't believe it.
wait. Before I have to throw in one more thing about
Okay.
trivia about this before we get to the plot. They released this specifically on a thing called Sweeps Week. If people don't know what Sweeps Week is, it is basically like a week of television where historically television series have done their best to hit like the biggest highs, to like get as much ratings as possible. It is common for shows to live or die by this week. And they're like, we'll release it this week and we'll see if the ratings are good enough to pick it up to a full show. And it bombed. It absolutely bombed because it was against, again, the best other TV shows had to offer. I think it was on the same time slot as Roseanne.
Wow.
Yeah,
I might be wrong. It was bad though.
I was going to bring this up later, but it ended up not doing well at all in the US. I think it got like 4 something million all around the world except for Great Britain. When it came out on BBC a week later, it got like 10 million views just inside of Britain. So they loved this, officially adopted Paul McGann as their new doctor, and all of the books and the comics and the everything were now all about Paul McGann all the way up until Chris Eccleston took on the role in 2005. So although he has only one televised appearance, asterisk, he has the longest tenure as the main doctor and has way more stories about him than anybody else does, which is hilarious.
And the way that this TV movie has colored what people wrote in all of those books and magazines and audio dramas is very funny and is a thing we'll probably get to later.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Anyway, please start.
So this movie starts with a bunch of things that don't make any sense. So apparently, the Master was put on trial by the Daleks on their home world of Skaro and sentenced to be turned into goo. And his final request was for the Doctor to return his remains to Gallifrey. The Daleks are singularly driven to exterminate all of the races. They wouldn't have a concept of a trial, much less give a shit about the Master's crimes. And but they probably just wanted to have the Daleks in this movie for a few seconds.
Because of maybe some people would remember Dalek Mania from the 1960s, which was a thing that hit America.
Yeah,
but they don't even actually show.
No.
They don't show them, and
they just say the Daleks.
The extermination voice is wrong.
It's so bad.
It's really bad.
It's okay. Nick Briggs was still busy somehow not getting sued for making The Stranger and audio visuals to now be like one of the main Doctor Who people.
Yes. Nick Briggs.
You love to see it. Anyways, so then we get a cool CGI title sequence featuring the first like orchestration of the classic Doctor Who theme. And after which the Doctor continues saying that a Time Lord has 13 lives and the Master has already used all of his. This was established canon at the time. Oh, GDQ just hit 2 million.
Nice.
Of course I just muted it. I didn't actually turn it off. I'm a freak. So at the time they had like cool stuff planned for how's the Doctor going to keep going after 13 lives. And it's been important because the Master had run out of lives a lot before, and he had already done some weird shit to try and stay alive in the classic series.
He ran out of his entire cycle by the time the Doctor was on his 4th.
Yeah. he burns through those. Well,
so, when you look at how he lives, you can it's a high risk, high reward, and he never seems to hit the reward part.
No. So, the Doctor, who has been voiced by Paul McGann this entire voiceover, grabs the sonic screwdriver to lock the Master's goo in some sort of lockbox. But then when it pans up, hey, that's not the guy from the TV guide, and that's not the voice that we just heard. What the heck is going on? The 7th Doctor sits back and relaxes in the fucking coolest TARDIS, literally of all time.
Yes, 100%.
No other TARDIS looks as cool. And prior to this, there was no precedent for the TARDIS to be anything other than a white room with a time machine in the middle of it. Like everything else was very sterile looking, and they might go off and show like another part, and there might be like a table or something, but it was all very like clean, white lines, circles, stuff like that. But this was America in the 90s, so this was goopy and had uh uh spider webs and candles and gothic shit everywhere, and it was amazing.
It
And a
rules.
library's worth of books.
Yes.
I don't even know if I had seen classic TARDIS interior before, but I've Googled it now to see what y'all are talking about, and wow, it sure is different from what's in this movie.
Yeah.
It's so
But what's in
different.
this movie rules. What I'm seeing in this Google search also rules.
It does. I
It's
love the
very
classic TARDIS
60s.
interior. But
Yeah.
for the Eighth Doctor specifically, this TARDIS interior is perfect. Because
Yes.
he's the romantic Doctor, and I don't mean in a romance way. I mean in the capital R romanticism of the literary movement.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So some weird undisclosed timey-wimey shit happens. It doesn't matter, and the master's goo breaks out of his box, and it slithers into the TARDIS console, where it causes it to malfunction,
I
knocking it
think
off. Of course, go ahead.
I think we could summarize a lot of Doctor Who stories if we just cut that sentence shorter, cut it mid-word to some timey-wimey shit happens and then the master.
Yeah.
And then the master.
That's a lot of Doctor Who stories.
Yes. So it knocks the TARDIS off course from Gallifrey to Earth, San Francisco, December 30th, 1999. The Doctor is like, oops. Um, Meanwhile, in San Francisco, we are introduced to Chang Li, a punk kid who lives in Chinatown, whose gang is in over its head, running from and then shooting at a bigger, stronger gang. They hop over a fence so the gang can't follow them, but Chang's gang think that they got away, but there were gunmen waiting on them, and so they start shooting the shit out of Chang and his gang. All of Chang's friends die. He's not torn up about it. He doesn't mention it the entire rest of the movie.
He gets a new friend.
Yeah. So the gang
who's very nice and not a bad guy.
Yeah. So the gang corners Chang, and they're about to shoot him when the TARDIS materializes in between them. The Doctor steps out and gets gunned down by machine gun fire the moment he steps into America.
Even if it's America, that's bad luck.
It's pretty bad. The gang, being freaked out by a teleporting phone booth, run off and leave Chang alive. Chang checks on the Doctor, who tries to alert Chang to the Master's goo gooping out of the TARDIS door, but Chang doesn't see it, and it goops after him and into the ambulance that he calls for the Doctor. The EMS in the ambulance, Bruce, asks Chang to fill out the patient intake forms for the Doctor, but since Chang doesn't know anything, he just fills it out as John Smith. In the hospital, they see that the Doctor has two hearts, but because it's a woman x-ray technician, the male doctor doesn't believe her, says it must be double exposure, and then when he's hearing a double heartbeat, he digs in, holds his ground, and says that, oh, the heart must be palpitating, and let's call in our cardiologist instead of listening to a woman.
I love how when the x-ray technician says two hearts, there's two hearts, the Doctor says, as if.
Some of the dialogue in this movie is fun. It's very fun.
Fun is a word for it. Also, I'm looking at the Wikipedia page for this movie, and Anthony Head auditioned for the role of the Doctor. That's interesting.
What? Anthony Stewart Head?
Yes.
Oh my god! He would have, honestly,
Which,
he's a pretty good Doctor.
I loved Paul McGann in this movie, but I would also love to see that as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, sorry, I just got distracted by that. Continue.
Oh, it's fine. Please continue.
They call the cardiologist on call, Dr. Grace Holloway. Grace is at an opera with her boyfriend who she hates, and so she gets a page and is like, sorry, I gotta go. I'm a literal doctor. This is just an opera. So she runs to the operating room in her opera gown, which is one of the best scenes in TV history.
It's amazing.
That shot is my Roman Empire. I think about it all the time. She gets into the operating room, still in her, like, she's getting, like, scrubbed in, still in her dress. Fantastic. But when she's in there, the Doctor wakes up and he's like, hey, whatever you're about to do, don't do it. I'm not human. I have two hearts. Don't operate on me. Do you have a beryllium atomic clock? It's very important. She's like, okay, crazy guy, don't worry, it'll be okay. And she ups his anesthetic. He wakes up from that anesthetic, begs her not to operate, and it's every time she ups his anesthetic, he wakes up and begs her not to operate. Uh,
We
eventually,
need to emphasize he doesn't have human biology. This
yes,
chemical isn't operating correctly.
yes. Eventually, she does manage to knock him out long enough to operate, and during the operation, she realizes that he indeed has two hearts. But because she's a woman, the male surgical technician says she must have made a mistake, so she tries to fix her mistake, which causes the doctor to go into cardiac arrest. They can't recover it, and the doctor dies on the table. This whole movie could be avoided if people listen to women. I'm just saying.
It's true.
I mean, I don't. I think the master would have still gotten up to some shenanigans.
Yes,
He probably
absolutely.
Some stuff could have been avoided, but
yes. The doctor wouldn't have spent half this movie with amnesia, at least.
yes, he probably would have taken care of the master more quickly.
Yes. Grace is pissed off and she wants to see his x-rays where turns out the doctor indeed has two hearts. They bring Chang back in to see if he can help identify the doctor, and Chang is like, "Oh, damn, this is sad. I'll tell his family that he's gone and just take his stuff to him." And Grace is like, "That's not how any of this works, dude." And he's like, "See ya," and runs off.
They're like, did you are you a friend of his? And he's like, yeah. They're like, he died, and he's like, damn, that's crazy. Can I have his stuff? It's great. I love him.
I love him so
he's
much.
Great.
Yeah.
The cast of this movie is very good.
Yes,
They are. They do so well.
There's like 4 characters, and they're good.
I truly did not expect the actor for the master to deliver a performance that worked as well as it did.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my! I have a lot to say about the guy who played the master. I fucking loved it.
Speaking of the master, meanwhile, we see Bruce asleep at his house, who's sleeping next to his wife, and then we see the master's goo drip out of his EMS uniform, slither across the floor, and jump down into his throat like a Goa'uld.
Like a what?
Stargate. He's a big worm snake goes in his mouth.
Okay. Have we established who Bruce is?
Yes, I made sure I name dropped him in the EMS earlier. His stuff wasn't important in the ambulance, but I made sure to bring him up because
good job. I must have been getting distracted by the Wikipedia page. For instance, among the actors who were invited to audition for the role of the Doctor but declined the opportunity were Christopher Eccleston and Peter Capaldi.
That's hilarious.
I'll close the Wikipedia page so I can not be distracted.
So back at the morgue, the doctor finally comes out of his anesthetic, so his regenerative properties can kick in, and he changes from Sylvester McCoy into Paul McGann. Paul McGann wakes up and busts out of the freezer and leaves the morgue, making it to the weirdly exploded and flooding wing of the hospital. It has like all of its windows blown out, like a pipe is hanging down, just pouring water into the hospital.
I was like, what?
At first I was like, is this a construction area? But then I was like, why is everything wet and shitty? And
is this the horrid hospital from a series of unfortunate events?
Yes.
Oh god, that's another thing from my high school, junior high years that's just rushing back to me now.
Scarlett is currently reading them. She's on the penultimate peril right now.
Oh, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, so there's like a bunch of broken mirrors everywhere for some reason, and the doctor looks into to him, doesn't recognize himself, does a Jackie Chan reference, falls to the ground and screams, "Who am I?" And revealing to us, the audience, that he has amnesia.
Also, he's like in these like flowing white robes because it's the sheets, but they've become these like flowing white robes, and he like falls to his knees with his arms outstretched, and it's a very, and this is not the last time this happens. It's very like the Doctor is Jesus, and I like to see that there are things in modern Doctor Who that I find silly, that it's like, oh, that didn't completely start in modern Doctor Who, at least.
Nope.
There's precedent.
I mean, listen, Doctor Who has on some level always been extremely silly. That's part of its charm.
Yes.
Also, so him having amnesia here led to the hilariousness of many of his his side canon adventures involving him getting amnesia, because this is the one thing we had for him, and so writers
What?
said, I guess he gets amnesia again.
You want to know
So it's just an established. It becomes an established character trait of his that he gets amnesia.
Yeah.
Yes.
The best part, his immediate when he lands the TARDIS from leaving the end of this movie, he arrives in London, gets amnesia, and has to go and meet all the other doctors.
Does he mentions the anesthetic fucked him up?
Mhm.
So did it just like permanently mess with this version of his
Maybe.
brain?
Maybe so.
Honestly, I love that explanation.
It might make sense because not to put on my Doctor Who nerd glasses, but Peter Davison, who we talked about earlier, his doctor had a plot thread that never came up, but he was his regeneration was fucked up, and he was like permanently allergic to some made up thing that would he had a piece of celery stapled to his shirt, because that would be the canary in the coal mine. The celery would turn purple. Would turn purple. Would let him know that, oh, you could die. But he left after 3 seasons, and they never made that story, so it never comes up.
I'm sorry, he had celery on his shirt.
Yeah, he has celery on his lapel at all times.
I'm googling Doctor Who celery.
When this comes up in canon, it's like, well, what do you do if it turns purple? Oh, well, then I eat it.
You know what? Doesn't look half bad.
It really doesn't. Like,
it's a really good outfit. I'm just sad that the shirt ended up being the shirt that the 6th and 7th Doctor wore under their other stuff. Like, it's a nice shirt, but it was a little bit reusing the same thing over and over.
I'm surprised that this doesn't look so bad.
Yeah,
but anyway.
It's a good outfit.
Yeah, I think it has
nice
one of
flourish.
Yeah, unlike the 6th Doctor's outfit has a big cat brooch for some reason. Same place. It's stupid. Anyways, so the Doctor is rifling through the crew's locker room, where the lockers are all filled with costumes, because earlier there was some throwaway lines that the night shift was going to have a costume party for the turn of the millennium, and from these costumes he creates his official 8th Doctor costume.
And he looks at a long, colorful scarf and disregards it, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even I get that one.
Okay, but for real, the 8th Doctor's outfit, one of the best Doctor outfits.
It's great.
Adore it.
It's so good.
It's whimsical, but also like not stupid.
Uh-huh.
The only mark I have against it isn't really against the outfit itself, but the wig they're having Paul McGann wear, because he hates that wig so much. His hair is actually much shorter than that.
Yeah. But his hair is also the same same texture. So if they would have just paid him to grow his hair out, he would have had that hair, and it wouldn't be a big ugly wig. But,
I mean, that might have taken a while.
It might have taken a while.
But they had to get this in time for Sweeps Week.
It's true. So meanwhile, Bruce's wife wakes up and notices that Bruce is mumbling about how this body won't last long, so he has to find the Doctor and steal his lives. And his eyes are now green and cat-like. She notices that, and he kills her. Back at the hospital, Grace is trying to find the Doctor's body so she can oversee the autopsy, but of course he's gone now. Grace comes to the conclusion that it must have been a body snatcher. The hospital admin is like, well, if it's a John Doe and his body has disappeared, we can just say he was never here, and the death on the table won't have to go on your permanent record. We can just burn these x-rays and make it all disappear. Grace is like, that's a really bad idea. this is stupid, and I don't want to do this. I don't want to be forced to be a liar. And he's like, no, let me handle it. But she he doesn't listen to her, and she is like, don't do it or I'll quit. And he leaves the room to do it. So she quits. And I think it's really cool because she's like, I'm going to quit. And basically is like, you don't have the nerve to do it. And she's like, fuck you then. I'm out of here.
Literally, the next scene, she's carrying her boxes of stuff.
Yeah. I love her.
I love
She's
her so
great.
much.
She's very good.
As she's riding her elevator down carrying her stuff, the doctor follows in after her because he recognizes her from the operating table. He says that he doesn't remember who he is, but he knows that she must know who he is because he remembers her, and he begs her to help him before they kill me again. She thinks that he's crazy and tries to leave, but then the doctor pulls the like surgical scope out of his heart that had got left in after the surgery. So she finally believes him and takes him to her house.
It's like the during the operating scene, she mentioned, like, while he was convulsing, that the probe that was in his
It like snapped,
arteries or stuff
broke off
snapped,
at him.
and he pulls it out of his torso, and it's disgusting.
It's so gross.
So I was watching it with two partners, and one of them covered their face and looked away. We're just like, Doctor Who is not normally this gory.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, it's not.
It's already like an intense scene, and then he starts pulling something out of himself, and I'm like, ew, I don't like that.
As he starts yelling at her.
Meanwhile, the Bruce Master, serving Terminator 2 realness, comes in looking for.
We saw Terminator 2 and liked it, and you know what? I liked it too.
Me too. This is like when your mom is like, no, we're not going to watch Transformers. We have Transformers at home, but then it turns out to be Transmorphers, the straight to DVD thing that actually rules. This is that. It's like, we have Terminator 2 at home, but this actually rules too. So he comes in looking for that gunshot wound victim that I brought in last night, and the nurses are like, oh, sorry, he died, but there was this kid Chang with him, and he might know something. When the doctor and Grace arrive at Grace's house, she uses a stethoscope to very easily prove that he indeed has two hearts, proving that she's better than all of the men in the hospital who wouldn't listen to her. The doctor informs her that he's come back from the dead, but Grace doesn't believe him. Meanwhile, Chang goes back to the TARDIS because he lifted the TARDIS key off the doctor when he took all of his stuff, and he opens the TARDIS, discovers that it's bigger on the inside.
One thing I do love about Doctor Who, all the Doctor Who media I've seen, I love when someone enters the TARDIS for the first time and they're like, what the fuck? It's great every time. I love it.
It's like the wonder, the just like, oh wow, this world is so much weirder than I thought it was.
And the stupid visual gag that happens with that later, I love it. We'll get
so
there.
Good.
It's highly stupid, but so good. Inside the TARDIS already is the Master, but Chang isn't weirded out by this fact. The Master says that he's Bruce no more, he's just the Master. He does some vampire eye shit to get Chang to give him the doctor's stuff, but whatever he was looking for isn't in there. Bruce tells Chang that he'll let him live if he helps recover the doctor. And Chang is like, this is the good guy.
He takes him at his word.
Yep. To be fair, he is offered gold dust.
Not yet,
Yes.
even.
Not yet. You're right. That was later.
Oh yeah.
That was later.
So back with Grace, she's reeling from finding out that aliens are real. So they decide to go for a walk. And while they're doing it, more memories keep flooding into the doctor, but none of it's making any sense because it's all alien shit. The Master, meanwhile, is telling Chang that he's the victim here. The doctor stole his body and all of his regenerations, and he offers Chang a bunch of gold dust for when he gets his body back. the master keeps telling Chang to like, oh, why don't you touch this over here and see what happens? And Chang will touch something and the TARDIS will like activate because the TARDIS likes Chang but hates the master for some reason. Don't know why.
Don't know why.
So, this includes opening the cloister room where the Eye of Harmony is. Don't ask me why the Eye of Harmony is inside the Doctor's TARDIS and not at the center of the time vortex. It's another stupid thing that somehow had to become canon, and there's a stupid thing around it. It's very stupid. But
Yep.
the nexus of all time and space is in the Doctor's TARDIS for some reason.
The thing is, that's
that's weird.
remarkably Doctor Who. The thing about Doctor Who is canon is constantly shifting and changing, and nothing actually means anything except when it's important to you specifically.
Mm-hmm. I noticed I got to the and you talking about that. I got to the end of my notes. I never mentioned the thing that keeps coming up that the Doctor is half
It's
human.
half human, yes.
Because that's never brought up. They mention there's like a offhanded mention because of course everything has to be canon that the Doctor was just joking because every time he says it to someone, it's in like a joke context because the movie is meaning it where he's being serious and people don't believe him, but we can retcon that as he was being silly, and
Yes.
Doesn't change why the master keeps saying it, but whatever. Not all not all retcons are clean.
No, they're not. Also, there was a point in the 11th or 12th Doctor run where Stephen Moffat tried to kind of bring that back for a little bit. It was like, Moffat, no, stop it.
Stop it.
But also, as much as the Doctor being half human is stupid, and it shouldn't be canon, it does, again, so many times, oh, new creative heads coming into Doctor Who. Okay, I'm completely changing the Doctor's canon.
Uh-huh.
It's happened
so many
times.
If he were half human, wouldn't he have 1.5 hearts?
Yes.
No, having 2 hearts is a dominant trait.
Oh.
1 heart's a recessive allele.
I see.
Yeah, he also doesn't have blood, as we found out earlier. Anyways, the master takes Chang and forces him to look into a fancy Gallifreyan retinal scanner thing, which causes the Eye of Harmony to open. Elsewhere, the Doctor can sense that something is wrong, and it's this danger of something being wrong with the web of time that helps him finally remember who he is. The eye, for some reason, turns into a hologram projector, and it shows the Master and Chang an image of the Doctor, where the Master realizes that the Doctor's eye matches a human eye, so he must be half human. I did put it in my notes. I just don't ever bring it up again after this.
Also, why does the Eye of Harmony open up if you're human? I don't. They never covered this.
It's never brought up.
Why would Time Lords build a security device into their thing to where you need a human being? That's the least Time Lord thing.
Me not actually knowing what any of this shit was, I assumed it was like for some reason this was like the Doctor's security device, and for some reason it needed the human half of him to open up.
Yeah.
So seeing the human eye opened it up.
Sure.
But that's still stupid. I'm just grasping at straws.
And the movie doesn't agree with you. At the end, the Doctor's like, for 700 years I've been trying to get it to open and I haven't been able to. And the Master's like, because you're only half human. It needed a full human to open. So
I forgot about that.
Yeah, no, that was a line the Master said.
This movie.
I love it.
I love it.
Was that before or after the Master started talking like a dinosaur? Because I couldn't fully understand what he was saying when he started talking like a dinosaur.
It was before the dinosaur, just shortly before the dinosaur. It was when he was talking like the Joker.
Okay, like the gay Joker.
Yes. So the hologram image thing resolves into what the Doctor is seeing, which is Grace, and the Doctor realizes that the Master can now see through his eyes, so he closes his eyes. And, but it's too late. Chang recognizes Grace as the surgeon that operated on the Doctor. She gets very confused as to why the Doctor is suddenly acting so strangely, has all of his memories back. So he explains calmly that he's a time lord from the planet Gallifrey, and the Master is bad news, and he needs to get a beryllium atomic clock so he can fix the TARDIS and close the Eye of Harmony. She's like, "Oh, he was psychotic the whole time. That makes sense." And so she runs back to her home.
A doctor immediately being hostile and dismissive of a person they believe has a psychosis. That's just how the world works. Yeah.
He continues to try.
Also,
Go ahead.
I'm just sort of annoyed. Like, someone acting irrationally is not a plot hole, but
No.
she already knows he has two hearts and his blood is not human blood. Like, come on, he's an alien.
Come on. At her house, he's continuing to try and convince her that alien shit is real, and then he proves that time and space are broken by walking through solid glass. She still doesn't believe him, and instead calls the hospital for an ambulance to pick up 2 psychiatric patients, thinking that she's also having some sort of an episode.
Also, the fact that you can now walk through glass also doesn't come up again. It'd be cool if that was just a thing that people kept doing throughout this movie.
Yep. On her TV, the news is talking about the change in the millennium. It's so funny watching this, having lived through Y2K, that nobody brings it up because they didn't know it was going to be a panic for the next couple of years. And so they're all just like, man, this is exciting. All the clocks are switching over to the big 2000. And it's like, no, that's not how anyone was welcoming in the millennium. But on the news, they say that there's a super accurate beryllium atomic clock at some science place in San Francisco, and they're going to start it up at the turn of millennium to have a big swanky party to have the most accurate clock in history be in San Francisco.
I just think having a party this fancy and this crazy and being this excited about an extremely accurate clock, I don't know if I can explain why, but it just seems like the culmination of the 20th century.
Oh, 100%.
Like, I feel like in the 21st century, we would not give a shit about this clock. No, there would be no funding for this clock.
Definitely not. The ambulance arrives to take them to the hospital, but it's not a normal ambulance, of course. It's the Master and Bruce's ambulance. Grace doesn't realize there's anything up with Bruce wearing Terminator 2 cosplay, and the doctor doesn't recognize the Master, and he's not one to judge weird fashion choices. So he's like, don't take us to the hospital, take us to the sciencey place, and Bruce says, okay. While they're in the ambulance, Grace and the doctor are arguing about some time travel shit when they get stuck in a traffic jam, which, as you recall, ambulance with running lights on them can't get stuck in traffic jams. But the sudden stop knocks off Bruce's sunglasses, revealing his weird green eyes, and the doctor now recognizes him as the Master, blasts him with a fire extinguisher. He spits on Grace and burns her hand, and the doctor and Grace escape. Then, in the least realistic scene in the movie, the doctor and Grace steal a police officer's gun and threaten him at gunpoint, so he just lets them take his motorcycle.
No, they don't threaten the police officer at gunpoint. They threaten the doctor at gunpoint, and then the policeman at gunpoint. The doctor's plan is to steal his gun, point it at himself, and go, now if you move, I'll shoot. It's so good. I love this scene.
There are 2 things I want to say about this scene. Well, there's a few things. 1, it's hilarious. 2, I like how I don't know if this is a thing with earlier doctors, but I like how one of this doctor's things is him doing sleight of hand. It's fun, and one thing that he does is he distracts the police officer while he steals his gun and then threatens to shoot himself. Also, he ends up giving the gun to Grace, and then Grace like shoots the motorcycle.
Yes.
Stuff, and I'm just imagining at the end of the movie, when the doctor's like, come with me, and Grace is like, no, I can't come with you, and then they're walking away, I would imagine her turning around and saying, you know what, actually, I did help steal a police officer's gun and shoot it at him. Maybe I should come with you and get out of town. Because they
Maybe.
probably, like, that police officer's probably is going to report that this happened, and I'm probably going to get in trouble.
So they get on the bike and they tear off down the way. Chang then is told by the master that he's driving an ambulance, so the traffic jam doesn't mean shit to him. So they turn on the siren and pull out and chase after the doctor. But before long, while they're chasing him, Chang takes an exit that the doctor does it and says he knows the shortcut. When the doctor and Grace arrive...
Also, how does the doctor know how to get there at all? Is Grace giving him directions off screen?
He
knows shit. It's fine. Who cares?
It's the doctor.
Yeah. There's probably a book where they explain it.
That's the fun thing.
There's probably a book where they explain that he's been to late 20th century San Francisco several times before and has a vague understanding of the layout.
Yes. So when the doctor and Grace arrive at the science place, the master and Chang are already there, but they've gone inside somewhere, so Grace and the doctor have to go in after him. Grace gets them into the swanky party part of it because she's on the board of trustees for the science place, apparently. They commit several minor crimes to sneak up to the clock and take the beryllium out of it. They pocket it and they try to head out. But on the way out, they're spotted by the master and Chang, who start to give them chase. So they pull the fire alarm to cover their escape in chaos and then rappel down the building using a fire hose. And it's pretty cool.
I feel like that wouldn't work.
Yeah, it definitely wouldn't work as slowly as it did. They did, especially because like when the master shows up, like it's just pulling slack. It's not like tight on anything yet, so they definitely would be free falling. But whatever. So they hop on their motorbike and they race back towards the TARDIS. When they get there, the doctor gives Grace the whole bigger on the inside spiel. It looks like a police box because it got stuck. All of the new companion stuff. But when they get inside, he's distracted because the TARDIS's cloister bell is ringing, which is a sign that the TARDIS is dying, basically. The doctor rigs the beryllium into the TARDIS console, which closes the Eye of Harmony, but the TARDIS can't time travel because the TARDIS says that there's no future due to the tearing of the time stream that the Eye of Harmony is going to cause. The doctor says that if they time travel backwards, it can undo the damage to the time stream for some reason, but the TARDIS doesn't have enough power to go to the past. I have Doctor Who nerd ideas from other things that he's done that could explain why I do it, but he doesn't say any of that, so he gets a for some reason. He does some jiggery pokery to jumpstart the TARDIS, but the master arrives and asserts his dominance over Grace with the vampire thing, like he did with Chang, and she smacks the doctor over the head and drags him into the cloister room next to the Eye of Harmony.
She like grabs her arm where his goop got on her, and it's like he's controlling her through that or something. Yeah. There's a lot made of this goop. It's not clear how it works.
No, especially because he should have the literal exact power set as the doctor, but for some reason he's a fucking dinosaur.
I mean, also the master's just always been like one of the master's things from when he first showed up is hypnotism, and he uses it to mind control people constantly.
Yeah, I'm not as upset about the vampire stuff that he does, but the turning into a snake, literally he skipped over it, but he like barfed goop at a bunch of like security guards break into the thing, and it's like he's supposedly a human right now. He's taken over a human's body. Why can he do all of these things?
Well, the Daleks turned him into goop. And the goop entered a human body. I thought he spit out a lot more goop than entered the body in the first place.
Also, Okay, did they turn him into goop? I thought they just like turned him into ashes, and somehow his ashes turned into goop because he's so evil.
I don't fucking know.
I don't know either. It's and the thing is, body snatching is an established master thing. Doing it with a goose snake is not.
Yeah, but goo.
The goose snake.
CGI.
CGI goose
CGI
snake.
goo.
Television 1990s television quality CGI goop.
Couldn't do much more than goop.
Mm-mm. When the doctor comes to, Grace is fully taken over by the master, who is now serving cunt in full Time Lord regalia.
He's serving such absolute cunt in that. Okay, listen, I hate Gallifreyans. The Time Lord outfits are terrible, but they fucking rock. Also, I would love one of those insane sets of robes.
Every
And
time...
I love how.
Go ahead.
I love how the doctor mentions, "Oh, you had time to change," or something like that.
Well, yeah, he's like, "Oh, we don't have time."
And he's
for
like,
that.
"I always dress for the occasion," and he's like,
Yeah.
"I'm camp now." It's so good.
It's so good.
Like every time Doctor Who shows us a regular ass Time Lord wearing the regalia, it's stupid. Nobody would dress like that to go into work. But every time a Time Lord reveals that they're evil and they're wearing that, absolutely no notes, 100%. That is good evil clothes.
I said, you know what? I said I hate all time. I'm sorry. I have an exception. Romana's good. All right, that's my exception.
The master continues to tell Chang that, no, look, I'm the good guy, and the doctor is obviously a bad guy. That's why he didn't fight back and is just this very small man. Which, like, I always forget that Paul McGann is short because he gives tall energy, but he's like a very tiny man, and it's very funny.
He's a you know what? He's a cute twink who could pass for a lesbian if he needed to.
Mm-hmm. Like, especially now that he's
taller
5'9".
than Sylvester McCoy.
He's 5'9". There's so
that's
many.
That's what Google says, but Google.
I mean, Sylvester McCoy.
Sylvester
McCoy is notoriously he's the shortest doctor, I think. Or him.
I
or
just
the
Googled
second.
Paul McGann height, and it says 5'9", and it says people also search for Tom Baker 6'3" and Sylvester McCoy 5'6".
Okay, so the rest of the doctors are all just giant freaks, so he's normal sized. But never mind that. It all makes sense. Yeah, so but Chang isn't dumb, so he's starting to see that something is up with the master story. Grace rigs up a Clockwork Orange device to the doctor to force his eyes open for some reason. I thought it would be to open the Eye of Harmony, but that never comes up, so it's just to hold his eyes open.
Well, it's because, like, they're gonna use the Eye of Harmony to suck out the doctor's lives through his eyes and shoot them into the master's body through his eyes. Or suck out the master's soul out of Bruce and shoot it into the doctor's body or something.
Yeah. Something eyes, something. He's rigged up with his hands above his head with his eyes held open. The master asks Chang to open the Eye of Harmony, but he slips up and says that he's been chasing the doctor for all his lives. And Chang is like, I thought you said the doctor stole all of your lives. I think you're lying to me. And the master's like, Chang, buddy, I would never lie to you. You're the son I never had, and snaps Chang's neck.
Yeah. I love though when the first time he brings up he's like the son I never had. Lee looks just so uncomfortable.
So the doctor is like, why did you kill him? How will you open the eye now? You don't have any human eyes. Grace's eyes are all Xehanorty because you're taking over her. So the master frees Grace from his control in a really gross villain kiss. You know the kind.
Hate it.
Hate it so bad. She gets her human eyes back, and he forces her to open the Eye of Harmony, and then casts her aside. When the eye opens, the energy or whatever is starting to transfer between the Doctor and the Master, and the Doctor tells Grace to reverse the polarity of the neutron flow and use the energy instead to jumpstart the TARDIS. She fumbles about in the console room, manages to hotwire the console, and that puts them in a temporal orbit, whatever that means. She asks the Doctor what that means. He doesn't answer. And she
I was
manages
hoping y'all could tell me.
vaguely, if you think of time like outer space, you can hover near a time without entering that time. Like you can orbit a planet without landing on that planet, and that's temporal orbit. It doesn't make a whole bunch of sense, but they bring it up a lot for like we need more. Our time machine literally travels in an instant. We need a reason to have drama on the TARDIS, so we're going to be in temporal orbit.
Okay.
So moments before that she manages to do it moments before the clock strikes midnight, which they said earlier was all the time that they had, and I don't remember why. Putting them into a temporal orbit stopped the energy transfer to the Master, and he doesn't like that at all and starts talking like a dinosaur.
Why does he start talking like a dinosaur?
I don't know.
Grace,
he
go
did
ahead.
Terminator 2, then he did Camp, now he's Dinosaur.
Yeah. He's got range. So Grace runs back into the cloister room and frees the Doctor from the Clockwork Orange thing, but the Master grabs her and throws her off of a balcony. The Doctor runs to check on her, but the Master is right behind him, and he starts kicking the shit out of the Doctor, almost throwing him into the big swirly Eye of Harmony, which will be bad. The main thing they're trying to stop is the timelines are getting sucked into the Eye of Harmony, and so if it's bad for the whole world, it's probably bad for a Doctor. But as the Master is going to like tackle the Doctor shines a light from one of the thingies nearby into the Master's eye, which causes him to miss the Doctor and fall into the Eye of Harmony. The Doctor tries to save him, but the Master says, "Never," as he's torn apart by the swirly energy shit. The Doctor carries Grace and Chang away from the Eye of Harmony as the TARDIS starts to travel back in time. The Eye of Harmony starts to close, but before it does, it sends some regeneration energy into Chang and Grace, which brings them back to life. At the time,
It does this at the exact moment I'm thinking, that's a really bold decision.
yeah. When this movie came out, that was very stupid and no one liked it, but that's also how River Song came out, and she's a fan favorite. So now that I've watched it after River Song, the last time I watched it was before River Song, I love it. I think it's great. This is now solid canon. Of course you can bring people back to life. The TARDIS has regeneration energy. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
So they time travel back to before the eye was open, which undoes its wrecking of the time stream, and they are able to freely enter Y2K. The Doctor sends Chang on his way, but he tells them, "Hey, don't be in San Francisco on New Year's next year. I'm a time traveler, trust me." He turns to say something to Grace, but she's like, "I don't want to know my future. I know who I am, and that's enough." He's like, "Come with me," and she then shares the only on-screen romantic kiss between Doctor and companion before she says no.
I mean, she kissed a few times before that.
But this one was the first one that was explicitly romantic between both of them. She was falling for him when she was like, "Do that again," and made him kiss her again earlier. But this was the one where they both went in for the kiss.
I see.
The Doctor then hops on board his TARDIS. He flies off into the temporal sunset, where he lands at Coal Hill School, loses his memory again immediately. But that happens in books credits. So yeah, we're gonna listen to some more music of some sort, and then talk about our memorable moments, of which I'm sure there are a lot.
I called out your name in a misty dream last night. Saw that old
So when they get to the TARDIS,
Yes.
when the Doctor and Grace get to the TARDIS, they like open the door, and then they realize they've been pursued by someone on a motorcycle, presumably a police officer, because they've been doing illegal stuff. But I couldn't really tell. But
yeah, it was a police officer. As he was leaving, he had sirens on his taillights.
Okay, I just didn't notice.
Yeah.
But he is driving straight for them, and he drives into the TARDIS, and just the angle is great. He just like goes right in, and we see that it's, you know, this tiny thing on the outside. He goes in, and then a few seconds later, he just drives out and just keeps on going. Presumably, he saw what was in there, and he was like, "I am not sticking around. This is someone else's problem."
It was a very good joke. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite parts of this movie are all the parts where Paul McGann gets to be the Doctor, which I wish there was more of. But
Absolutely.
the Eighth Doctor, as they establish him in this film, when he gets to really sink into the role, one of my favorite Doctors. He's just such a he just loves life, and he loves connecting with people, and he loves having little small positive impacts on people's life. My favorite is there's a guy who's working at the big exhibition thing for New Year's. I think his name's Gareth or something like that.
Yeah.
And when he confronts and tries to stop the Doctor from taking the thing, he's just like, "Okay, you have a test tomorrow." He's like, "Yeah, how do you know that?" It's like, "All right, make sure you answer this question, not this question. Don't focus on that one. You're going to want to focus on that. But focus on this question. Answer it correctly, and you'll do great." It was just like, and then just later be like, "Oh yeah, that guy's going to grow up to become this, X important person, but only if he can pass his poetry class. And hopefully I've helped him with that." And it was just like, I love it. It's good. The Doctor doesn't normally interfere with people. A lot of the other Doctors don't normally interfere with people's personal timelines like that. But giving Eighth that little thing of like, "Oh yeah, he will. He'll just poke you."
He
Also, I like
absolutely
the
does.
idea. I like the idea that you can still. He says he'll do this great thing, but first he has to graduate from his poetry classes. And I love the idea that you can major in some stupid art bullshit and still do something good with your life. I really hope that's true.
Either that or it's the sort of thing of like he is in the sciences, but a lot of colleges require well-rounded. Yeah, you got to take a poetry class.
Yeah, speaking of the little things that let this Doctor be the Doctor, is so like Trish said, they take the 12 minutes that they get in this movie to expand it for 10 years, and the idea that he's a name dropper constantly is 100% Eight's thing. And basically every single audio drama, he name drops somebody that he's been hanging out with. And he also specifically the Doctor, but also Paul McGann, he's like this in his behind the scenes interviews and stuff too. He loves to be going down this train of thought to pivot, make a joke, and then continue back on it. And there are so many good ones. My favorite one, and it's a lot of people's favorite one, is he's going like, "Oh my god, I'm from Gallifrey. Like I remember everything." And oh my gosh, and he goes, "What is it?" He goes, "These shoes. They fit perfectly," and then continues talking about everything.
Yes, that moment is good. It's charming.
There's a lot of charming in this movie. There's a lot of fun. Paul McGann's delightful. I love the companions. I really liked this actor as the Master more than I thought I would. I think honestly, we talked about it at the beginning a little bit. Honestly, I think one of the biggest things hampering this, and I think what might have partially killed it trying to sell it in America, besides the time slot, why did you start off with a lore dump of, "Oh, the Master on trial on the planet Skaro by the Daleks"? It was like, no!
Yeah.
Just start with the Doctor and just let it, give us time with the character and the location. Let us figure things out that way. Don't just throw a bunch of proper nouns at us like this. This is bad introduction.
It's kind of hard to imagine people staying on that channel
Yeah.
after the first like 30 seconds of this TV movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's silly. There was another bit, speaking of the master, that I really really loved. So they're chasing after Grace and the doctor in the ambulance, and Chang is like, "You know what I'm going to do with all this gold?" And Bruce is like, "I don't want to know." And Chang is like, "Ah, man, you kill me. You want me to kill you? No, I mean you make
Yeah.
me laugh, man. You're a funny guy. I'm glad one of us is amused."
That is really good.
So good.
I love Eric Roberts as the Master so
Mhm.
much. I think his performance is ridiculous. It's hilarious. I love it so much, unironically, because I just love it. Apparently, Eric Roberts is the older brother of Julia Roberts.
Oh, huh. I mostly know him as the guy from the beginning of The Dark Knight with the shotgun who attacks the Joker briefly. That's literally the thing I know him from.
I don't know him from anything but this, but I mean, I have seen The Dark Knight, of course. I'm an American. Um, I'm sure I've seen him in some stuff. He seems to be fairly prolific in smaller roles, but God, I loved him so much in this. It was so good.
Yeah. Another small thing that I loved is when they pull the fire alarm to get out. Grace is like, "Why'd you do that?" And the doctor's like, "I don't know, to liven things up." uh,
Yes,
and then
there was surprisingly a lot of filmmaking I liked in this. I don't know, when I think about uh TV movie, maybe this is unfair, but when I think about TV movies and when I think about Doctor Who, I don't think good filmmaking.
no,
But there were just lots of little filmmaking things that I enjoyed. Like I liked the way they did it when uh Grace is like scrambling to hotwire the TARDIS, which somehow she knows how to do.
Mhm.
And it's like cutting to people counting down to the new year, and right at the end it cuts to the news anchor saying that's all the time we've got. And it I just love the way they do it. It's really good.
Yeah, normally television movies are not good at filmmaking, but this one is surprisingly good, especially being one from the 90s on like network television, not even like HBO or anything.
Yeah, no. If I usually hear this movie talked around and saying like, "Oh yeah, that's that really bad Doctor Who TV movie," and I'm like, "Is this bad?" In some places, yes. I think it's hard to argue otherwise that there's some part to this kind of stinks, but it's also good. It's also kind of great, and more than any of that, it's just lovely and fun, and it gave us Paul McGann as the Eighth Doctor, and I can never be upset with it for giving us that wonderful treat.
Yeah. And we get a little bit of his voiceover at the beginning, but like the way he narrates is fantastic. So
it's so good.
It's perfect that he became the audio doctor, because he can just read the narration and it just transports you to
his voice is just so good. Also, there isn't a lot, but whenever he becomes shouty Eighth Doctor, like really starts yelling.
So good.
It turns out he plays Sweet Boy very good. He also plays Terrifying very good when he needs to.
Yeah, this movie owns.
I was joking earlier. I'm angry because I actually enjoyed it a lot. I think my thing with Doctor Who is that I just, unlike say Star Trek, I don't have any patience for it when it's not good. But when it is good, it's quite enjoyable. But when it's bad, I'm just like, oh my god, fuck this.
Yeah. So,
but yeah.
if you you, the royal you, not you specifically, Bernard. If you wanted more Eighth Doctor, and they're like, oh, what's all this Big Finish that you're talking about? While you're going through and listening to the Eighth Doctor ones in order, you will see one called Minuet in Hell. Just skip it.
Just skip it.
There's the only thing you're losing is that it's the last appearance of Nicholas Courtney as the Brigadier, which is very sad that
It's
has
so
to be the
sad.
one, because it's very, very, very bad. No redeeming
is.
qualities. There's no reason to put yourself through it. Just skip it. Go on to the next
Just-
one.
You
Just
say,
skip it. Yeah, go ahead.
You say that it has no redeeming qualities, but the title Minuet in Hell is a good title.
Okay, that's true.
Uh,
But only a couple episodes, not a couple episodes, a little bit after that, you get to things like Time of the Daleks, where Daleks are obsessed with William Shakespeare. It's so good.
mhm. And I think it's 2 episodes after, because I think the one after that is the
It's
H.G.
5 episodes after.
No, I'm saying the H.G. Wells
Oh.
one is right after, and then the one right after that is Chimes of Midnight, which is
Yes.
far and away considered like one of the best things that Big Finish has ever done.
It's one of the
Yeah.
best Doctor Who stories ever made. It's
Yeah,
a beautiful horror story that's also a dark comedy.
and it's a
It's-
Christmas special.
And it's a Christmas special. And then, of course, we get to Neverland and Zagreus, and I will defend Zagreus with my dying breath. All the haters
I
can
love
suck
it so
my
much.
dick. Neverland is also just so good. I love good Gallifrey lore, and I hate bad Gallifrey lore, and that's good Gallifrey lore.
Yeah, the you really can't go wrong with the Eighth Doctor stuff. Charlie is my favorite of his companions, and that's
Charlie's
the one.
so great.
That's the
I
one
like
he
Lucy
gets.
Miller too.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to.
Okay, sorry.
I love Charlie so much, but if there are any bad Eighth Doctor episodes besides the one we already mentioned, they're probably Charlie episodes. But once you get to the Lucy episodes, which are also on Spotify, he basically hasn't missed ever since. Like
Mhm.
the start of Lucy to now, which is the Eighth Doctor adventures range, is so good nonstop, top to bottom.
Yeah, I really need to listen through all of those. Also, like, literally just ask, and I will put together like a listen through order for the through lines. Because the fun thing is, 5, 6, and 7 each have distinct through lines with specific companions who are original to them in the audio dramas. Like 5 with Perry and Aramem, 6 with Evelyn Smythe, 7 not with with Ace and Hex. Who God, I love Hex.
Hex is so good. But yeah, there's a lot. If you search for Eighth Doctor on Tumblr, you will probably come across my post where I made a reading list of all of the Eighth Doctor stuff that was currently at the time. So you can do that and make your way through it. It's really good and really fun. But I think
I
Go
was
ahead.
just wondering if Grace ever appeared again, and unless I'm missing something, apparently the answer is not really. But also, Daphne Ashbrook performed in the Big Finish Productions
Yes.
audio play The Next Life opposite Paul McGann, but playing a different character.
Yes.
That's
The
interesting.
Next Life's a good one too.
So, as you could probably guess, this being a Fox television movie and not a BBC thing, the rights are a little weird. They've recently been casting Eric Roberts as the Master, but the Master having existed beforehand, they can just not directly say that this is the one from the television movie and get away with it. Otherwise, they haven't been able to mention it almost at all, which is sad because Grace rules.
Yeah.
They brought her up for a like anniversary thing once because again he only has one episode, and so that all they can pull from are things from this episode. Every time there's like a big multi-doctor crossover thing, if they're not cowards, it'll have Charlie. If they are cowards, it'll be the Doctor by himself, or they'll somehow make it tie into Grace. But in one of those crossovers, he came back, convinced Grace to go on adventures with him, but while she was out on the adventures, she said, "No, fuck that. Like, I'm I'm a simple girl, simple needs. I don't need to go out on adventures, and still turns him down. But those are her only 2 canon appearances.
I was
If
kind of
I-
hoping that at the end of the movie, Grace and Chang would both go with him and have
They would've been a good
wacky
TARDIS team.
misadventures.
Yeah.
Because I have stupid amounts of behind the scenes stuff. Both the actor for Chang and the actress for Grace said they would want to come back. Grace at the time said she wasn't planning on being the main companion, but maybe she would do like a in the new series Donna sort of thing, where Donna was there for a bit, wasn't the companion for a whole season, then came back later, and then came back later again now. But so maybe it would have been something like that. But both of them wanted to do it, and I would have loved to see
Yes.
more 90s Doctor Who with these characters.
I would have really loved that. I just wanted to jump in and just say, when we're discussing a little bit Big Fish side things, this is connected to the Eighth Doctor, but just if you're curious about the format, if you're curious about giving it a try, I'm just going to recommend one that requires no other understanding, no other side things. There is a episode called Davros. It's from the monthly range, number 48. It is 6th Doctor versus Davros. No Daleks, no companions, just the 2 of them in a absolutely delightful story. It's so good. Anyways,
me and Trish could literally start a second podcast talking about Big Finish, and maybe we'll do random episodes on that on the bonus feed. But for now,
I'd love that.
But for now, this episode is over. So, if you like what you heard, you can head on over to www.rpgbook.club, where any and all donations help us cover the cost of running the show and making it better and better. If you set up a recurring monthly donation, you also get some additional benefits. If you donate $1 or more a month, you get access to our bonus feed that I just mentioned, where this week we are doing a JRPG canon episode on the RPG Maker game Last Scenario. It was commissioned by Elle, and it's surprisingly vanilla. Like, this is the first time I've played an RPG Maker game that wasn't a weird art project. It was just they made an RPG in RPG Maker, surprisingly, and it's pretty cool. So you can check that out this week.
I like it.
Yeah, it's.
We'll talk about it more then.
Yeah. They don't break the engine over its own back.
No, they don't.
That'll never get old.
Never ever. So if you donate $5 or more a month, we'll also shout out your name at the end of every episode, just like this. Shout outs to Cerebral Wind, It's Clear Time, Frosthair, Dragon Slayer 19, Florist, Kaledron, Freddy Rodriguez, Aaron524, and Jfro Prime. And then finally, if you like us so much you want to donate $20 or more a month, you also get to make me say a sentence of your choosing, either to plug something or just to make me say certain words in a certain order. So shoutouts to El Tantavi, who wants you to check out critical-distance.com, an aggregator for games criticism and journalism. And shout out to Vimk, who wants you to play Legend of Legaia for the PlayStation. I copied and pasted my notes from last week, so I didn't have a good thing to say about Legend of Legaia, and it's really hard to come up with new stuff. Maybe I'll start playing Legend of Legaia, and I'll do a mini book club at this moment. Just a 2-sentence book club of the week. Shout outs also to Carr, who's a dentist, so he isn't plugging a website, but rather your own mouth. And he says to brush your teeth twice a day, most importantly, the time before you go to bed. For RPG Book Club, I have been Sam Allman.
I'm Bernard.
And I'm Trish.
Toodaloo, folks.
Bye.